Hi, friends. I just want to apologize ahead of time. There is going to be some weird sound for me on this episode as well as the others I recorded this week because there was a strange problem with my sound driver. I have since gotten it fixed, as you can tell, but apologies because these sound real janky. Apparently the whole time, even though it looked like I had the right mic selected, it was recording me off of the mic built into my computer monitor, which, as you can imagine, is not ideal. So bear with me on that. And also, please do me a favor and check out our sponsor, m3virtualaccounting.com, because we are entering a new year, kiddos, and you need some help with your finances. Admit it. M3 Virtual Accounting. Get in touch with Molly for a free consultation today.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, A Song of Ice and Fire 2, the co-host Switcheroo, the rereading, Return to Westeros, HBO Spoiler Edition, etc., etc. We are covering chapters 55 and 56, Jon and Bran. In these chapters, both times, things start out slow. And I'm like, ugh, get to the point. And then George R. R. Martin is like, oh, I'll get there. I'll get to the point. It's going to be so goddamn pointy. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
So, was that just me? Like, how did you feel about these chapters?
Alright, kids. Is everybody sitting down?
Everybody sit down. Immediately.
Because I am about to blow everybody's minds.
Oh, shit.
Are you ready?
No.
You can't possibly be ready. But here we go. I fucking love this Bran chapter so much.
Hey!
I almost tried to go and read the next one. I was almost like, I was so mad it ended.
Oh shit. I love it. I love it so much.
I was actually, you guys, legitimately upset that it ended.
Woo!
And was like, I really wish I could just flip through, find the next Bran chapter and read it right now. That has never happened.
Yep.
You guys know that I secretly am worried every week that there's going to be a Bran chapter.
Yeah, I was actually kind of relieved that it started with a Jon chapter so to get you off your guard. And then, the Bran would sneak up on you.
I really loved this Bran chapter. It fucking really just worked for me. It did such a wonderful job of like the way the old Nan stories are weaved in. Yep. And like just the sense of dread at being at the Night Fort. Even I was like, oh, I don't want to spend a night here. This is no good.
I'll tell you what, this is such a good example of how good George is at writing horror. He is genuinely very good at this unsettling shit. Man.
I was so creeped out.
Yep.
And I was, it's the middle of the day. I'm on my very well-lit living room on my sofa. I am not in any danger. I'm very cozy, because I had heat. And I felt like I was crouched in this menacing, dilapidated, creepy, probably haunted location.
Yep.
And when it's Sam coming up out the well, I was like, what the fuck is that?
Right? Yes.
It just really worked for me. The whole thing worked for me. It really did. I was shocked at how much I enjoyed it.
I genuinely can't remember how this goes in the show. If it's they don't meet inside a castle, do they?
I don't remember, and I didn't bother trying to find out. I honestly cannot remember. I don't remember. Like when I was reading the Jon chapter 2, I was trying to remember because I have a vague memory of Ygritte dying, and the way it happens on the show is Remember that little fucking kid that they introduced?
No.
They brought in, like, I don't know if it's supposed to be some sort of take on this Satin character that's in the Jon chapter or not, but there's like a fairly young kid.
Don't his parents get killed by wildlings or something?
Maybe. And
Yeah.
he ends up, like, being taken in. And if I'm not mistaken, after the attempt to kill Jon and all that shit happens, I wish I could remember the little boy's name. He ends up being hung because he's a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys can correct somebody. I mean, it would be me technically, but I'm never going to see it. But correct me if I'm wrong. I think in the show, when Ygritte dies, they have that kid as being the one that shoots the arrow.
Right.
And it's a very emotional thing because, like, I feel like maybe Jon was there when it happened or something, but I don't remember exactly. But I feel like in the book, it happens, in the book, Ygritte dies sort of off page and Jon finds her body. She's already been shot, by an arrow and everything. So it didn't go the way I remember it going on the show. But the Sam and Bran stuff, I don't have any memory of. I cannot for the life of me. Like, does Sam meet up with Bran in the show?
I can't remember.
See? It's so weird. Some shit from this show I remember clear as day, and then other shit is just like, did this happen?
Yeah, and I'm going to say, like, from here on, Bran doesn't resemble Bran in the show at all. Like,
well, I'm fucking looking forward to that.
I find Bran's stuff to be a lot more interesting going forward, but the journey up north is a drag, and then once you get past this, it starts to get a lot more interesting. At least to me.
Cool.
But they did some weird shit in the show where they were like trying to make it more interesting, and I'm like, all right, so clearly I don't understand what it was that made it interesting in the books, because I won't remind you what they do in the show too much because I don't want to put it in your head that that's not what's happening in the book. Mm-hmm. But they go very, in my opinion, like video gamey with it.
I will say what I remember from Bran. Oh my God, you guys, don't ever get old. This situation that I have, not to just take us off track for just a second. Regulating my body temperature, you guys. You've heard me complain about it before.
Yeah.
I cannot get my life together. Like, when we took a small break before we actually started to record, I got up and I was like, oh, it is so chilly in here. Where'd all this cold air come from? We hit record. 2 minutes later, I am fucking sweating bullets.
Oh, no.
This is just, it's no way to live. So, excuse me while I, get up out of my, robe and move this blanket. And then you'll have to excuse me 5 minutes from now when I'm freezing and I have to put it all back on.
You're all huddled up.
Oh, my God. But,
oh, Austin says in the show notes, thank you, Austin, Ollie is the name of the little boy.
Oh, look at that.
Yep,
look at Austin anticipating our needs.
He does.
This is some excellent service. 10/10 do recommend. If you don't have an Austin in
make
your
a
life,
Yelp page.
right? Get you an Austin. But what I do remember from Bran and my fairly uninformed opinion, because I haven't gotten to the good bits in the book yet, but so much of Bran is tied to magic.
Mm-hmm.
And the show, as we've discussed a bunch, really didn't want to lean into the magic of these books. And so it feels like that left them in a weird predicament with what to do with Bran.
It's odd because they didn't want to lean into magic with certain things. And then they went way too far with magic on other things.
Yeah.
It was just all over the place.
It wasn't really balanced well. And I mean, we could have a whole separate podcast about the failings of the show.
Mm-hmm.
But I am very interested to see the Bran story in a world where we're really going to dig in, to the sort of lore of this universe.
Right.
And it's another reason why the inclusion of the old Nan stories, not only were they just creepy, but we have a whole bit about the Night's King,
mm-hmm.
which I don't know if that's supposed to be the Night King that we all know from the show.
I think it's supposed to be.
Sounds like it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it occurred to me that, like, I thought that motherfucker's name was the Night King, not the Night's King. That's an entirely different energy.
Yeah, it is, right?
The Night's King is very different than just, the Night King. And I guess that's just, I mean, on the show, they probably called him the Night's King, right? And I just got used to saying Night King because everybody was just writing it that way.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff like that where there's just a slight difference in what it actually is versus what everyone calls it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sort of let it go after a point because I was like,
he's he's not a battle worth fighting.
Yeah, you know.
But it really
I think
does
you
make a difference.
You say like wildlings.
The wildlings?
Yeah. And a lot of people just wrote wildings. Like, you know, without the second L in there.
Yeah.
And like, it doesn't really matter. It's fine. I just found it like more difficult to say wildlings than wildlings for some reason.
But also when you say wildlings, that's a very different thing as well.
Right? You get a different like vibe off it. I don't know.
You do. It's hard to sort of explain, I think. It's hard for me to articulate why it hits different, but it absolutely does.
Yeah.
So yeah, I enjoyed both of these chapters. I enjoyed the Jon chapter as well, and we only have like the one chapter. Like the whole thing isn't over, even though it ends. It kind of feels like this fight is kind of over for right now. But I don't remember like this whole trap, basically this elaborate trap that they have, this giant fire pit they've created, which sort of lured everybody into.
Yeah.
I don't have any memory if that's how that shit goes on the show or not. My memory is just that it's just like a fucking fight, you know?
Yes. Which is kind of surprising to me because, like, yeah, as I was reading the trap that they lure them into, I was sort of like, I don't remember this in the show, and it feels really cinematic. Mm-hmm. And I'm surprised they didn't do it for the show because, like, they tend to like set piece sort of stuff, and this feels like it would really lend itself to that.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I remember it being much more a lot of like just very close combat, you know, and it was at night because it's at night in the book too, but they also just loved having battle scenes at night on the show. They really just loved that shit. So, you know, it was just all very like dark and you couldn't see a lot and everything's like lit by torchlight but I don't remember like a big spectacle, and this seems like it would have been a huge spectacle, and
exactly
kind of a bummer that it didn't pan out that way.
Maybe it was the budget.
Yeah. I mean, all that money was going to dragons, which, you know, they knew what we were looking
dragons
for
and fucking Hard Home. That episode. Oh, so good.
God, it was good, wasn't it?
It's such a good episode. It makes me so angry. I want to go back and rewatch it.
When they got shit right, they really got shit right.
They really did. It's what made it so much more saddening when they fucked up.
Yeah.
It's like, I know what you're capable of. Your potential is right there.
Oh, man. It's like when you date a guy like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And you know how good they can be. And then you're just like, why? But you showed me how awesome you could be. Why are you being such an asshole right now?
Why are you just letting us both down?
Right?
Honestly. Don't you want what's better for yourself? It's not even about me anymore, babe. Anyway, all right. So let's start this Jon chapter off. Yeah. And it starts with they woke to the smoke of Molestown burning, and Jon is thinking to himself, like, it is sort of weird that you decided to just go ahead and announce yourselves like this, you know. And I will be honest, I couldn't recall how this battle exactly unfolds. So I was wondering if this was a setup to get them thinking they were coming from one direction and they had come from another.
Yeah. Ooh.
And like there is a point at which they begin breaking up through the trap doors, and Jon is like, I didn't hear the gate go down. What the fuck? And is taken by surprise. But I was wondering if it was going to be even like more extreme than that. But thankfully, the Night's Watch winds up coming out on top here. I say thankfully, but like I don't have any. You're just trying to survive.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point too. It's like, I don't really have any beef with the wildlings, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They are trying to get to safety, and they don't want to be ruled. They want to be free folk. But these particular men, like Steer or Steyer, however you say it, him I got beef with.
Yeah, he sucks. He sucks for real.
But yeah, like, the odds don't look good for our boys in black at all.
No.
And right?
I don't know why, but I'm just like rejecting that because of my associations. No. I don't want to call them that. But why not? They are our boys, and they're in black. Fine. You know what I'm saying.
Did I tell you? So, you know that, like, my downstairs neighbor is a cop. I told you that before.
Anytime
right?
you lower your voice, I'm like,
Oh,
that's a
sorry.
good. Tell me, your downstairs neighbor is a cop. I don't remember that. No,
I didn't tell you. Yeah, I have like two neighbors. One is a cop, and one has a "Let's Go Brandon" welcome mat. So you gotta love that for me, right?
Get a personality.
Oh my god! But so the cop got a new like Jeep, and
Jeep?
it's like a it's like a Jeep, the brand, not like the
Right.
style, but like the actual make of the car is
Okay.
from Jeep, and it's like but to look at it, it's much more like an SUV.
Okay.
And he's got the fucking, in big block letters, Punisher on the side of his
It's
thing.
not just the skull; it says Punisher.
It says Punisher, and that's the weird thing is, I've looked at it from two angles now. I don't like get all up and inspect the whole thing, but like, I'll see it parked outside. I don't think it has the skull. It just says in these giant letters, Punisher.
You should report him for copyright infringement.
Listen, I'm wondering if that's why he doesn't have the skull. Like maybe they didn't do it.
Maybe. Man, that is so sad.
And then, what did you say before? Get a personality.
Get a personality. Like, genuinely, look, I think that Trump is one of the worst people that has ever lived. But I don't have a fuck Trump, like, flag hanging outside my home. I don't want to involve him in my life any further than he has been against my will to begin with. So I just won't put him anywhere on my... It's just weird to be so obsessed with hating somebody that you include them in your core choices. Like, really, just move on. Go, just find a hobby, download Duolingo,
Find a different hobby, because the one you've got now is not working for anyone.
It's just a pathetic thing. Ugh. Anyway, okay. Sorry. We got our sidetracks going already.
So the Jon chapter, especially the way it opens, because there's so much focus on just how little they have to work with. You know, they don't have enough men. The men they do have are basically all the people that weren't well or fit enough to go out ranging in the first fucking place.
Yep.
And then they've got like all these villagers, and you know, they're not fighters by any means, and you can't count on them. Like, shit is dire. They are like basically trying to defend the castle with scarecrows, which
that is so that is bottom barrel shit, man. I just like this. We're doing a Kevin McAllister Home Alone with the Michael Jordan standee taped to the train set. Like, wow. And you know what? Like, it does seem to sort of help at first.
A little bit, right? Like, they're taking a lot of the arrows, you know, because, you know, they're trying to, you know, the wildlings are aiming for them, thinking that they're, you know, actual fucking dudes. I'm really curious, like, how many times do you think they had to shoot one before the guy was like, wait, what? This motherfucker still didn't drop? What the hell?
I love when Jon is like, if you're going to take shelter behind the wall. Don't take shelter behind one of these guys, because the arrow will just go through him into you. Just a bit of advice. I was like, no,
I love to,
that's good
like,
advice.
The counterbalance to that moment of, like, not hiding behind a scarecrow because it's going to go right through you is later on with Sam, like, screaming bloody murder because he's been poked by the frog spear, and like and Mira's like
bleeding.
Mira is disgusting.
She has no time for this at all.
She's like, you're fucking wearing chainmail. Like,
I didn't get anywhere near you. Well, it hurt anyway. All right.
I screamed. I laughed so fucking hard.
But yeah, so Jon is injured and at first is trying to be like, I can fight. And Donald Noy is like, oh, really? How about I just kick your leg? And he's like, all right, look, I don't want you to kick my leg. I'm saying that I can use a bow and arrow,
right?
man.
Like, why do you always have to escalate everything, Donald? You're always pulling that
Donald's
shit.
like, what if I lob this grenade at you? Sir, I'm over here in very good shape. I'd still rather you did not. Thanks. But yeah, eventually Donald was like, all right, fine. We don't really have the position to be choosy, so I guess.
Right. So, yeah, Jon ends up on top of one of the, I don't know what you call it, like one of the towers, I guess?
I guess.
With this kid whose name is Satin.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I just want to mention that because his name is Satin.
I love it.
And
is it Satin and Diamond? Are those women?
Oh, that's Silk. Diamond and Silk.
Diamond and Silk. That's what I'm thinking of. Thank you.
Yeah.
It would have been funny if she was Satin.
You know what the two black women, right? They were like fake Trump supporters or whatever.
Yes.
Oh my God.
She's like, I'm not quite Silk. I'm just gonna aim for Satin.
Didn't they end up being? Yeah. Didn't I call them fake Trump supporters? But now I'm not sure what that's based on. But I feel like it was outed later on that they were full of shit.
They were doing fraud on some level, and I can't remember what happened.
Yeah, they got caught doing something. I can't remember exactly what either. But I like that I have decided to retcon it in my own brain that they were just scamming, and I have no idea if that's true, but like that they were not really that politically invested. They were just like, oh, here's an opportunity to make a bunch of money.
Oh my God, I'm looking at I just Googled their names just to see, and there's a website that's just called wealthycelebrity.com, which I don't know why that's so funny to me to begin with. But the title of this article is A Flash at Diamond and Silk's Net Worth and Life Struggles, which there's something so shady about that. We're going to talk about their net worth, and then we're going to talk about it's a struggle. That net worth is not going to impress anybody. And look, their net worth here is estimated at $5 million. So,
oh shit,
that's not anything.
I'm not in any position to be laughing mockingly.
Exactly. It's just the way they worded it. Oh my God, I forgot about the hair.
It was a whole scene, man.
It's a whole thing. Anyway, I'm going to stop giving them any airtime. Let's get out of here. I'm currently running a podcast. Shit. What's the name of it? I gotta know. Fuck. I hate this about myself. All it says is that, and it doesn't say the name of the podcast at all.
It didn't even fucking give
it's
the
just
name.
called Diamond and Silk : the podcast.
Oh my God.
That is just so unimaginative.
That is just...
I guess they've got brand recognition in their names. You gotta use that.
Yeah, I guess. I'm disappointed, though. I would have wanted something much more colorful.
Right?
That was their whole shtick, Disappointed, ladies.
Anyway, okay. I'm sorry, guys. We are just really tangenting the fuck out of it today. So Satin, you brought him up, and then I interrupted you with this.
So that's who's on the wall with Jon, and then there's a guy named Def something. Def Dale?
Def Lomar? I thought it was like an L name.
I thought it was a D and an R.
Dick
Follard. Def Dick Follard.
Def Dick Follard. That is so much.
And that's who he's working with. That's what he's got up there on his little tower to help him defend this little kid who was raised in a brothel.
Mm-hmm.
And then is later referred to as a whore himself, which I was like, how did we make that jump? But
listen, if you're raised there and you brought up there, they're gonna make you work eventually.
But yeah, there's a whole bit about like he's called Satin because first of all, he's apparently stunning, just a beautiful, beautiful young man. These big, beautiful eyes and this great. his ringlets, his hair is like all curly, and you know, he's got but he's been at the wall long enough that now his hands aren't as soft as they used to be.
I love too. There's a couple times where he's fighting and like he's not excited about this. He pisses himself when he hears the horn and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a couple times where Jon is like, "Shit, all right, son."
Yeah.
He's like really fast and like he's holding up his end of things, and Jon has not been sure how much he could depend on him.
Yeah, he is. He's actually getting some shit done, and then the more like successful he is, the more he's like, "Oh shit, did you see that? I got him. I fucking got him." So you kind of love that for him. And so we get like a little bit of an idea of like what's going on at Castle Black. You know how little, how few people are left behind, fighters. We find out about the villagers that are there, and there's a little the other things that I really like and that come up in the books is whenever we get like a little bit of history, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's hard for me to keep up with because there's so much and these books are like so dense. But this little bit we get about the, I guess some of the Lord Commanders through the years.
Oh, right, yes.
And Jon starts telling us about some of these people, and it was just, I don't know, it was just neat to like see the names and hear a little bit about some of these Lord Commanders. And we find out that there are still people giving Jon the side eye and think that he really is a traitor.
What do you think he's doing here, guys? Like, just genuinely, like, what's his angle? What was he traitoring for? And then comes and warns you. Like, I just want to know. You know what I'm saying? This is the thing I have with so many people who are just like, oh, so and so is, and they're throwing out these like weird conspiracy theories. And I'm just like, to what end? It's like the whole like, oh, the world's really flat and they're lying to us. Why? Why would they do that? And the answer is always like, so that they can, you know, keep us oppressed and working for the big man. And I'm like, they do that already, kiddos. I got news for you. The fucking situation you're talking about is just how the world is set up. And the world being revealed as flat would not change our system. What do you think is
I don't. It's this weird compulsion to just be contrary, to just be so distrustful of a dominant narrative that you disagree with it. It's like a reflex.
Yes.
You know, again, get a better personality.
Oh, and I wanted to mention too the names, because there's at one point Jon is looking at these guys and he. This is so funny to me. So I'm going to read what it's like here. Stout old Kegs, as slow as ever. Spare Boot, hopping along briskly on his carved wooden leg. Half-mad Easy, who fancied himself Florian the Fool reborn. Dornish Dilly. Red Allen of the Rosewood. Young Henley, well past 50. Old Henley, well past 70. Harry Hal, Spotted Pate of Maidenpool. And these fucking names, do you remember in Wizard People, dear readers, when he goes off just naming random people in the background sometimes?
Yes.
So he's just like Tony the Shrimp, Facer, Yellow, Otter Pop, Zuma Crew, Monster Mash, and Velasquez. He's just like throwing words out there. I don't know why, but Facer, that one always cracks me up because it really feels like a little bit badass, but you're like, why? What does that mean?
Like exactly what are you telling me with that?
Yeah.
Does he eat your face? Does he just really appreciate faces?
Does he just face up to things and take responsibility like a grown man? Genuinely not sure. Anyway, yeah, so these dudes are all like, you know, various levels of old, inexperienced, or just like straight up crippled somehow.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy too, Donald Noy is yelling at everybody, and Jon is like, ooh, he can yell though.
Well, I mean, this little memory of like Ned Stark telling him that how important it is to be heard in a battle, right? And how him and Robb used to practice yelling at each other across the like the courtyard of Winterfell, and just made me laugh.
I love this. Like, there is something so basic about it that we're going to go outside of practice screaming at the top of our lungs. But I do find that hilarious. Like, that's delightful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right. Go ahead.
Also, it's wonderful because, for me anyway, it's literally the kind of thing I would never, ever think about.
Oh, yeah.
I would never think of this. But then once it's brought to your attention, you're like, oh, of course. Of course that's super important. It makes absolute sense. Like, of course.
Yes.
But without it being pointed out to me, my brain would have never taken 2 seconds to consider this whatsoever.
Yep.
Yes, we have to have our yelling class at 2:30, and then after that, it's math.
Our yelling class. This is Yelling 101. Welcome.
It's different from screaming in the void. That's a different class.
Yeah, very different energy for sure. And this is oh right, there's this dude Owen here, which kept on throwing me off. I forgot that this character is out here. But Jon is warning them because they're getting meals brought up, and Satin's like, I'm not hungry, and Jon's like, fucking eat, dude. You have no idea when we're getting another meal. Just get yourself ready to be up here for a little while. Mm-hmm. And eventually Jon is like, all right, well, I guess I have time to go pee. And he decides to, like, walk down the stairs. And he's, like, down, like, not even a third of the way, and is like, oh, this was a mistake.
This was a terrible idea.
I should have just let them, like, do the thing and carry me. God damn it.
I like this Owen character, too, he says something like, because he's clearly slow, and has some cognitive, developmental kind of delays. Yeah. And he tells people it was because my mom dropped me on my head when I was little, and half my wits leaked out through his ear. And so when he's talking to Jon, he's like, do you think King Robert will, come and help us? He'll definitely come and help us. And Jon is just like, yeah, we're not going to do that song and dance again. I'm not going to tell him that King Robert
We've talked about this so many times.
He's just going to forget.
Yep.
And then that segues into Jon telling us about how many ravens have been sent. Yeah. They have been sent to every fucking body. And we know, as readers and watchers of the show, that nobody is coming right now.
Nope.
But at this moment, Jon is just like, even if they were going to come, they're not going to fucking get here today.
Yeah.
And we're worried about this battle right now, so it doesn't even fucking matter. Like, how many ravens went out? That is not helping anybody right now.
It's so depressing.
Yeah, and then just the fact that it takes time to, like, really, like, tell us, like, how many ravens went out and where they all went. They went all the way to Old Town and the Citadel. And,
yep.
And then to people who the Watch would think would be most likely to help, which are these northern families, the Boltons, and because they don't fucking know what just happened.
I know.
So there's, they sent ravens to the Boltons and, Old Castle and Deepwood Moat and all these other places. And crickets.
Indeed.
like nobody is texting back.
That's one of the more painful things about this series sometimes, is when people are reflecting on what could possibly be going on with an ally, and we know that ally is just not actually, and it's just going to take a while before they, like, catch up and find that out. It's just so hard to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a real kick in the stomach coming just off of, the Red Wedding a chapter or two ago to seeing people still feeling like they can reach out to the Boltons. It's just like, almost like, oh, too soon.
Exactly. So this, like, kind of, this is the part where I was talking about in my intro about just like, oh, let's get it rolling here, because it's a lot of setting up everything. It's a lot of reflecting on what we're working with and how hopeless this is, and how a lot of people really just don't know the reality of what's going on. And it takes a while before the wildlings begin to actually attack.
And the one thing I'll say about, like, this long build-up is we are watching, like, I think Jon says something like Satin is, like, so restless that he's just, like, walking miles in circles. Because, like, this this dread is building because you know the battle is coming, but there's nothing to do but wait for the attack.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so this chapter starts pretty early in the day, and the battle doesn't start jumping until the sun goes down. So they're just waiting. They're standing around waiting all day.
Yeah.
For this thing to fucking happen. And you're right, it just drags, but I feel like it drags almost on purpose. You know?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good, like, distinction. That it's not like the writing is slow. It's really just underscoring the agony of knowing you're about to be in a life-threatening situation and you just have to fucking chill until it happens to you. Which sucks balls. Truly. Why are we living like this? What is...
Girl. We just
built ourselves this prison, and we're like, this
really
prison.
Did. Somebody, our friend Nikki shared this weird post. Somebody used like AI, and basically it's just like somebody had written, some scientist or something had written that if you took all the world's population and sort of like ground them up into a fine goo and rolled them into a ball, this is what the dimensions would be. So somebody took that information and created like a Photoshop picture to represent that visually of like a giant ball of goo and sized it to Central Park. And this is what it would look like rolling through Central Park. And all I could say was, we deserve to be a giant ball of goo. Like, we really have that coming.
That's what we get! Oh, man. I mean... it's wild. We come up with all these ways to torture ourselves. We create capitalism. We create religions where we're like,
why?
Fucking is wrong. Like,
we create religions to tell us we not shit. Like,
exactly.
We created a whole religion. It was like the minute you were born, you started to suck.
You fucked up. You came to the wrong neighborhood, motherfucker. I just can't get over, like, yeah, there's plenty of things that we are fucked over, but none of those things is the thing that we say we're fucked over. Like, there's a lot that's genuinely worthy of ridicule and rules, but a lot of that is not the thing that we actually like bother with.
It really is.
It's just like, don't look at your neighbor's wife and go, ooh. I mean,
God
why not? Go ahead. Lust after your neighbor's wife. You don't have to be a creep about it, but you do what you want. It's fine. But then they're like, and when you sell your daughter, what? Word?
Make sure you don't cheat the man, because then you'll be dishonorable.
Right?
It's not the selling of the daughter that's dishonorable. It's the cheating of the other man that you're doing business with.
Have some respect for the man involved.
We are a mess.
So then we begin the actual, like, arrows, satin. I got one. Get another. Jon called. What are we going to do? We're going to kill them. Jon is just really out here just being like, focus, buddy. I get it. You're very excited. He's like me training Pippin to fetch. And Pippin's just like, I've got the ball. I've got it. I'm like, good. I get it, buddy. Yes, we're going to throw it again, though. We have to do this again. And when they begin heading toward them, you still don't know, like, after the first onslaught, and they, like, overcome the big open area of the courtyard. Mm-hmm. You don't know this is all part of the plan.
No, so it looks like it's going very poorly, because they are, the Night's Watch is outmanned, and, you know, there's a little bit of a, when the ruckus first starts, there's a little bit of feeling like, oh, okay, because most of the Night's Watch are, you know, probably have better weapons. Yep. They may be better training, but but eventually it's numbers, you know?
Yes.
And you're not gonna fucking win. And I'm reading that part like, oh, wait, do they take the castle? Trying to remember from the show, right? Like, wait, is that how that goes? And then thinking, oh, well, you know, everyone has been telling me that, you know, obviously the books on the show are very different, but the differences are really going to start to pick up now. Right. So I was like, well, shit, maybe it does go that way in the book. So I was completely surprised by the reveal that they had, like, this very elaborate plan in place. So that was really fun to read. Like, I enjoyed that moment of being like, oh shit, okay, did not see that coming.
And there's they use the fire to trap them, and they also at one point there's a fucking kettle full of boiling oil that they pour down the hatch.
Yeah, when they start coming up through that trap door. And yeah, and Jon says something like the screaming was worse than like anything that he had heard before.
Yeah.
You know. And Jon has been out in these streets killing people for a minute.
Yep.
So
and poor Satin looks like he's gonna throw up, and
Jon is like hold that shit till later. So yeah, so all that's happening, and it looks like our guys are gonna go down. Like, there's a moment where I can't know if it's Sty or Steer, but he has a moment where he kind of climbs up those steps.
Yeah.
Takes off his helm because he is like feeling the moment of victory.
He's fucking posturing like
he
crazy
really is.
Right now.
Don't do it, kids. Don't do it. That's a surefire way.
The hubris.
You know, the hubris. It'll get you every time. Just don't do it. I'm not saying don't celebrate your victories, but
wait until that shit is assured.
Right. Make sure it's an actual victory you're celebrating. Because the way that shit can swing back around on you.
Fate waits and watches. Just like, let me see how I'm going to humble this man today.
And then laughs and laughs and laughs.
So, yeah, there's this, there's also a moment, a bunch of people from Molestown have, like, agreed to help. And they're fighting, but they wind up breaking.
And these motherfuckers bounce.
Yeah, they really
and then some of the Night's
off.
Watchmen, like, end up leaving, too. They're like, oh, we're running? Okay, is this done? Yeah. Which, you know, if I was in a battle and I was on the front lines and everybody on my line started to break, would I stand there? I don't know, y'all. I don't know. I like to think that I'm the kind of person that would, but I just don't know.
I think that I would not. I would continue to like fight.
Oh,
not because I'm brave, because I'm distinctly not brave, but because I hyperfixate and I would not notice that everybody else is running.
Oh my god. You would just look up and be alone, but by then it would be too late.
I'd turn around and be like, where'd everybody? And then I'd get got in the chest, and that would be the end of that for me.
You know how I told you years ago, I don't think you had ever heard about it, and I told you about how black people will just run if somebody else is running?
Yes.
So you know that I'm definitely leaving.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm noticing immediately that people are running, and I am also running now. There's a bunch of like TikToks of that, and even though it's old, it just makes me laugh. I laugh so hard anytime somebody posts one. You just like one guy. They're usually like on a college campus or a high school campus or something, and it's just be like one kid that'll go like running through the quad for no reason at like top speed, and then people be like, "What the fuck?" And then I don't know. And now it's 5 people running, and by the time you get to the end of the video, it's like 40 fucking people running at top speed. Nobody knows why.
That is wild. It's a real herd mentality, like a literal herd mentality.
Scared of her.
Built in for a reason. That shit keeps you alive sometimes, you know? Like, I'm not mad at it. So yeah, this is when, I love this. Steer had taken off his helm to survey the scene of his triumph, and the bald, earless whoreson was smiling. In his hand was a long weirwood spear with an ornate bronze head. When he saw the gate, he pointed the spear at it and barked something in the old tongue to the half-dozen fens around him. Too late, Jon thought. You should have led your men over the barricade. You might have been able to save a few. Up above, a war horn sounded long and low, not from the top of the wall, but from the 9th landing, some 200 feet up where Donal Noy was standing. Jon notched a fire arrow to his bowstring, and Satin lit it from the torch. He stepped to the parapet, drew, aimed, loosed. Ribbons of flame trailed behind as the shaft sped downward and thudded into its target, crackling. Not Steer. The steps, or more precisely, the casks and kegs and sacks that Donal Noy had piled up beneath the steps as high as the first landing. The barrels of lard and lamp oil, the bags of leaves and oily rags, the split logs, bark, and wood shavings. And then it just goes the fuck up, and we get this line. that some of them continued upward and died. Some went downward and died. Some stayed where they were. They died as well.
Yep.
Many left from the steps before they burned and died from the fall. Yikes.
Nowhere out. And they tell us too that all the brothers know about the plan, but the villagers didn't.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad. But I guess you got to keep that shit, in order for it to work, you can't let the cat out of the bag.
Yep. And you need them to think they're winning. So the fact that a bunch of Molestown folks break and run, it really lends credence to their feelings of victory here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then, I love too that like the heat next to the wall causes a big section of it to slice off. Yeah. And Jon thinks the wall defends itself.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah.
I liked they get to see, Jon gets to watch Steer like go.
Yeah.
And that's super satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to find a bit. I don't see it though, but it's just like, everything cracks from the heat and breaks, and then he just sees them, and then he doesn't see them.
And this is when he walks down, he finds some bodies of friends, but eventually he comes across Ygritte, and I had forgotten that she's still alive because it's mentioned that she's got like ice crystals on her face. Which I thought was a signal that she was dead already.
Yeah, I was surprised that she like opens her eyes. I thought he was literally just finding her body. I didn't expect her to even say anything. But yeah, she opens her eyes and asks him about, is this a proper castle? And he starts to tell her how she's going to be okay. That the maester is going to fix her right up. She'll be fine. And she is just like, I don't need these lies, sir.
Yeah. Oh, Ygritte cupped his cheek with her hand. You know nothing, Jon Snow, she sighed, dying.
Yeah.
And that's the last line of the chapter. Pretty fucking effective.
Yeah, he's just telling her, you're not going to die, you're not going to die. Yeah, and she does the opposite.
She's like, lol. I'm going to show you up one last time, sir.
You keep telling me that you know better than me, and you keep being wrong. So I'm just going to be wrong one more time.
So often. Indeed.
There was an article floating around that I did not bother to click on because it felt like it was going to be a clickbait article. Mm-hmm. But it was, the headline was something like, Kit Harington hates you-know-nothing Jon Snow. Like he's tired of people saying it to him or whatever.
Look, I'm can you imagine being some of these celebrities and everybody just says the same fucking shit to you?
I would be so annoyed so quickly, which is probably why I don't have nice things. I just don't have any gratitude. I would not have any, people are like, oh, you should be thankful you got to be on this hit show and become famous and make all this money. You don't have any right to complain. Bitch, I will complain when and where I want to.
Exactly. Look, I get it. You have less sympathy for me complaining, but telling me I don't get to, just go shove it up your ass. There's this Alfonso Ribeiro, the guy who played...
yes, of course.
He played, for those who don't know, Carlton. And he's just straight up said in interviews, he does not do the fucking Carlton dance. People will ask him, and there was a time where he would do it for the fun. Mm-hmm. But now it's just degrading. And he's like, no, I'm not gonna fucking just start dancing for you. What is this?
I'm trying to take a piss. I'm not gonna start dancing in the men's room. Trying to have dinner with your family and somebody comes up to the dance. Oh my God, that would get old so fast.
Exactly. So now we move on to the Bran chapter. But before we do, let's take a quick break. Okay. I'm not gonna.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh.
I was just regrouping after kind of going nuts there for a second. So, Bran, it's only another empty castle, Mira Reed said. I love this whole chapter. Everybody's just like, it's just a castle. It's just, there's nothing here that can hurt us. And Bran is like, the fuck there's not. The fuck? This is a regular castle.
Right?
You guys can't feel the evil rolling off this place? What is the matter with you? He is just straight up like frustrated, it feels like, that nobody else seems to understand. We are not in a regular place.
Mm-hmm.
And
he also is like it reads like he's being dramatic because everybody else is having zero response.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he says this is the end of the world, which is a little bit of hyperbole.
A little bit, a drop. And he just has to keep being like, oh god, I'm not a kid. I'm not a kid. I'm like, you're literally a kid. But he has to keep telling himself, like, I'm almost a man grown, and get himself to not, at one point, hide under the covers, literally.
Yeah. And there's also, we find out, like, he doesn't tell anybody about the dream he had with Summer, or as Summer, or in Summer. So he is already freaked out, you know, and sketched out, and whatever. But they don't know that. So he is extra sensitive right now.
Indeed.
You know,
yeah,
and then to end up at a place like the Night Fort just does not sound groovy.
No,
if you ask me. Also, that it's been like abandoned for however long it's been abandoned, and it sounds like it just is not a hospitable location.
It sure
you know?
isn't. Yeah, like everything about the vibe of this place feels to me like you wouldn't need the stories to be very uncomfortable.
Yeah, like I feel like this is a place that's like gonna make you leave it.
Yeah,
like you're like, you know, like
there's just some places you walk in and it's like, okay, this location doesn't want me here.
Exactly, this location is not happy with my presence.
Yep.
I am not wanted here in this house, this room, this whatever, you know.
Yep.
I am not welcome here. Like, if the house could speak, it would literally just be yelling to get the fuck out.
Yeah. So this whole thing is sort of punctuated by him remembering different parts of stories. And we get, like, a sort of teaser at the beginning. Yeah. This was where the rat cook had served the Andal King as prince and bacon pie.
I love this. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to say really quickly. So, like, this thing about serving somebody the pie and then knowing, I don't know what the book is going to do, but knowing what the show does with Walder Frey, I just really appreciate it being like, oh, this is a thing.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yes. I feel like in the show they tell us this story.
They probably do. I don't remember.
Again, they are so bad at doing Bran's stuff that nobody probably paid attention when he told the story.
And there's another later on, I think, when they come back to the story, doesn't it turn out, or if it's, I don't know if it's here when it first comes up or later, but the thing about the rat cook, the punishment isn't because of the murder and the serving of the son. It's the guest rights violation. Yes. That brings the curse about.
Correct.
Which I was like, I really, really enjoyed that too, because there's a lot of, especially around Red Wedding, there's all this talk about guest rights and, you know, and da-da-da-da-da. But having, like, a story, especially something that's graphic, being sort of like an underpin to, like, this is why, you know, this is part of our mythos, but we have, like, these stories that we tell that support it, you know?
Yes.
I really enjoyed that inclusion.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how I mean, and this is how it is in our world as well. It's not just this, but just the weird ways that we decide certain things count and other things don't count. It's like, yeah, he murdered his sons. He baked him in a pie. That was fucked up, but, you know, whatever. But he said the man was safe as a guest, and you just don't do that.
You just don't do that. I mean, we're trying to have a civilization here.
There's just something about that I'm just like, okay, sure, we can draw the line there, I guess. I guess as long as we all agree that's where we're drawing the line, there's no problem with that. I just feel like we need to all make sure we're on the same page. That's all I'm saying.
Like, we have to all be in agreement that these are the rules.
Exactly.
And then there's another mention of a couple other stories. This one about, like, the 79 Sentinels, which is just wild. So these guys, what do you call it? when you like go AWOL or whatever, you abandon your posts.
Yes.
And they get caught. The guy goes to his fucking dad for like shelter, and his dad is like, "Nope, you abandoned your posts, taking you right the fuck back."
Yeah.
And their punishment is they're all like encased in ice, alive. Yeah. That is real harsh.
That's rough. That feels unproportional.
Like,
but
now I'm like, maybe Ned just taking that guy's head off is much more like humane way to treat that particular offense.
And throughout all of this, I should mention, Jojen is like, there's a way through here.
Mm-hmm.
And he is convinced because he had a green dream about it. I don't know if you noticed this at one point. Jojen once again says something solemnly. And I remember there was an episode where you mentioned how Jojen says everything solemnly. And then when he says it again, I was just like, there it is.
Listen, Jojen has like never cracked a smile. He is like 85 years old.
Nope.
You know, he is just, everything is of the utmost seriousness. This is not a time for jokes. There's like, no.
Mm-mm.
There's no room for that in this particular mission that we are on. You want to have some jokes, you fucking go hang out with Jon Snow or Jaime Lannister or Tyrion for the ha-ha. Mm-hmm. You don't get that here with me.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because, like, Jojen's whole deal is he sees too much to take anything lightly. But I do also like the interpretation of beings that can see a lot getting real silly. Because they're just like, nothing matters.
It's really all crazy. Love that. Yeah, like when you get someone like that who is like, I guess that's the sort of the burden of being able to see, right? Mm-hmm. Like either you crumble under the weight of it, or you find a way to carry the weight, which is to be like you said, chaos, like nothing matters. Jojen is carrying the weight of it.
He is, though. And, like, look, I sympathize as much as I can because I don't get it. But also, like, once you know you can do this, you can see things. Can you like kind of lighten up about it in general?
Especially because he's not traveling with people who doubt it. He's traveling with people who depend on him.
Right.
So it's not even like so you don't have to maintain this level of like being super somber all the time, because you don't need to convince these people. These people are already convinced and already trust you. So you can lighten it up a little bit.
I guess this is just who he is.
Yeah, I feel like he's just like, dreams or no.
It's just boring. Like, I don't know, man. You don't ever dream anything funny?
Nope.
There's nothing that you're just like, oh shit, that's gonna happen. Oh, I can't wait for that. That looks crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just seems like that has to be in the mix. It's not all just terrible.
Right, yeah. It's a bummer. I really do think he doesn't ever see anything good. It does not feel like he does. Which I guess the way this whole world and the story that this is all ramping up to, I guess that's fair, right? There really isn't anything good out there right now. And there's what was I going to say? There's this, where is it? Shit. I lost.
Whenever you say where is it, I'm like, uh-oh. We're about to lose it. We're about to lose her.
It's gone. I think I got distracted talking about Jojen. Here it is. There's this mention that Bran has all the shit about the Night Fort that Bran knows is something that's been bothering him or not bothering him, but it has existed in his imagination for a long time. So much so that when his Uncle Benjen was there one time, he tried to ask about it.
Yeah.
And his uncle was just like, nah, we left 200 years ago. And it's the way it's written. He says, I asked him if the tales were true, but he never said they weren't. He only shrugged and said, we left the Night Fort 200 years ago. As if that was an answer.
I love that. And you know what? That man knew good and goddamn well it wasn't an answer,
Right.
and that was fully on purpose, because he didn't want to tell this literal child, oh yeah, that place is fucked up. Because that's the correct thing to say. That's the answer that you're looking for.
What makes me laugh is that there is no reason in this moment between an uncle and what would have been a very small child. He could have just lied.
Yep.
But chose instead to just not answer at all. Like you had a chance to calm the fears of this small child, and you were like, I don't know, man, my ethics.
I could just step the fuck out of it and just pretend that wasn't what he asked. Indeed, sir. Indeed.
So I just thought that was fun.
I always enjoy when the kids are asking adults a thing and adults don't really answer, and kids are just like, you think I didn't notice that you did not answer me?
Right. Like the adult is all like smug and satisfied because they just assume the kid doesn't know any fucking better.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid is like, you fucking asshole.
And there's also talk here about how Summer jumped in and was fighting the wildlings. And Bran has this sort of obsession, I'm going to call it here, even though that might be a little unfair, with the fact that they should have done more to help. And Jojen is like, dude, you nearly lost your direwolf as it is. Like, you don't need to have gone down there. What could you have done? You were inside the body of a fucking, like, prehistorically giant wolf, and he nearly died. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And, Summer's like suffered some injuries bad enough that Bran can't do the skin changing thing with him for a while because the pain is so bad that he gets knocked right out.
Yep. He can't like penetrate the pain, and it's an interesting thing to think about. Like if you think about this magic of being able to like embody other people. Well, we find out like later because he does it with Hodor, but at this point, well, I guess he's done Hodor already once before now. But just this idea of like how does this magic work and what could be obstacles to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that someone who is like, I'm curious if pain blocks it. I wonder what else does.
Oh, that's an interesting question.
If there are any other conditions, like would someone being like really doped up on like milk of the poppy or something, would that make them more or less susceptible to it?
Mm-hmm.
Like just wondering like what other things could possibly block that from happening. And I don't know if it comes up anymore in the books or not, but I just thought it was really interesting here that and then he gets knocked out of Hodor. I forget what does it though. When he goes into Hodor when Sam's coming up the well.
Yeah.
And something happens and he gets knocked right out, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll get there. So, and he's really worried, I should mention too, that like not being in Summer and the fact that Summer is so injured, that Summer isn't going to make it. And finally, Summer manages to like get to them. Mm-hmm. And he like is eating the bodies of some of the wildlings that are left. And then he has to like swim across this thing. And I was just like, God, this wolf is really going through it. But eventually, even though he is limping a lot, it's clear like he is finally starting to heal. But as somebody who is just beginning to understand the anxiety of having an animal that is out here able to get injured in this way, I just was feeling this more than usual lately. I was like, oh, this little guy walking around. I had a day where I accidentally like backed up and stepped on Pippin's foot. And he was walking around holding that foot up for like a couple hours, and I was ready to throw up. I was so upset. It was fine. End of the night, it was like no limp, no nothing. He was fine. It just was sore. But God, I was freaking. Did I break his little paw? His little innocent baby. Like, it was bad.
I'm sorry.
Look, it's been a real experience. That's all there is.
That's all you're going to say about that.
It's been quite a lot, and I don't know how much more my heart can take.
It's just such a very different experience from owning a cat. It's very, very different. We've talked about that, off mic. Just the not just the actual neediness that the dogs come with, right? The care and all that stuff that you have to do. But there is a type of emotional neediness that dogs have that cats just don't really bring that specific type of energy into the relationship.
Sure don't.
And I'll tell you what, in like a second, it does not take long to suddenly be like, I am responsible for this thing's whole entire existence.
Whole
It
life.
is utterly dependent on me. Which, even though your cats are, technically sort of dependent on you, I take care of my animals.
They don't give that vibe.
But they don't give you that vibe. That their energy is, bitch, I can make it with or without you.
Yep.
Even if it's not entirely true, that's the sort of energy that
I could walk out that door tomorrow. I don't need you. I have my own bank account.
Don't you have internet? Do you see how much people love us? A family will just pick me up and take me home.
Yep. You see how fat and round I am and how I don't have a tail, so there's just a little stub like a rabbit? You bitches love this shit. Meanwhile, the dogs are just like, Mom? 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 God. It's like, I was looking up, I didn't realize that like a pit bull husky mix is, first of all, they're trying to call it a pitsky.
No, ma'am. We're not doing that.
We're not doing these little mixes of names, cutesy shit. I don't like it.
It is already out of pocket. We don't need to be adding more.
It's like
we need to be calming that down.
We're not doing it. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying the name that ends in doodle. I'm not doing it. But evidently, this is kind of like a sought-after breed for some people, except that because it's a husky mix, they're so hyper that a lot of folks can't handle them. And they have like a rating system of just like how much energy they are and how needy they tend to be. And these guys are at like the very high end of needy. Like they really want attention, they want bonding, they want time with you. If you're just sitting reading, they need to be there for it. And I was just like, look, I already have Ripley. Ripley cannot leave me alone. I love this girl, but this is why I have her locked out of my office when I'm trying to work. I can't sit down in the living room and not have her instantly jump in my lap. And when Rashawn was visiting, she saw how like, this is an adorable cat who's very sweet, and Rashawn was clearly horrified that she jumped in my lap, and my immediate reaction is, what the fuck? Get off me! But that's because Rashawn isn't used to this every second of every fucking day. It took so long for me to get her to understand that she can't do this when I'm on the toilet because I don't have pants on and her fucking claws just rake my thighs.
Yeah.
And she's too fat and she has no tail to balance, so she wobbles like crazy. So she's got these talons hanging on for dear life because she can't balance. I'm bleedable. You can't do that. I'm just a little water balloon filled with blood, and you gotta be careful. And she doesn't get it. I think she's like, also, she'll sit with Owen if I like reject her and she has nobody better. But it's clear that I'm the fat one, and that's why both cats prefer to sit with me, because I have more like square footage on my lap. Yeah.
Get the better real estate.
Exactly. Anyway, okay, so this is, Mira's finally like, I think we should climb up there and I could take a look around.
Yeah, because they can't find the gate.
Yep. It's so big.
They don't want to like be like, Jojen, I think you fucked up. Like, they're trying to like keep the faith and everything, but they have searched everywhere they can think to search, and there's no fucking gate. So now Mira's like, well, if I can get on top of this wall thing, if I get on, I could get a better view.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe I'll see something. So then this sends poor Bran, having some sadness about not being able to climb and what a good climber he used to be. And she gets up there, and not only does she not find anything or see anything, but also there is no way over this bitch. It is a straight drop down.
Yeah.
they cannot go this way. So this is a dead end. She starts to say, like, maybe I could do it by myself, but then realizes that's kind of like,
That's
doesn't
not
want to
really
hurt anybody's,
helpful.
doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Also, the steps that she's climbing up were like carved from the ice. And because like the things that you would fully expect to happen because it's ice happen. They melt, they refreeze, they begin to shrink, they become smooth in areas. So it's just not, this is just not a great way to build your main entrance.
All right. And at one point she's like on all fours climbing up, trying to get up. And Brianna's watching her and he's like, this coming back down is going to be a fucking problem.
Yep.
And we don't really get much of her descent. She makes it down safely and everything. We don't get like a lot of that, but I imagine it was quite treacherous, and I personally would not have volunteered to do that. She is a better woman than I am. Good for her.
Yeah, she's I feel like I get the sense off of Mira that she just always needs to be doing something. Like
right.
It's just a sense of having control over the situation, especially probably like having Jojen for a brother. And him always being such a fatalist about like what's going to happen is going to happen. Just you naturally start to be like, fuck that. I'm gonna stop that.
That's an interesting point you bring up. Being with someone like Jojen, who, like you said, is such a fatalist and sees what's coming and has a real sort of, well, you can't really do anything to change it, can you? Right? It's got to make you feel like there is absolutely, you don't have any control of anything.
Yeah.
So Mira's response is to try to control like as much as she can in her immediate like environment and control how she responds to things, because imagine living your life like that, under this basically this fucking never ending black cloud of Jojen, like fuck.
I thought you were talking about the ability, but you're talking about Jojen.
Yeah, I mean, it started out talking about the green seeing, but it really ended up with me talking about that motherfucker specifically.
The green seeing's a green cloud. Jojen's a black cloud.
Ma'am.
And there's also some mention here about how, like, Good Queen Alysanne is the one who paid for the move to Castle Black because this was just not the place for them. It wasn't working out, and they didn't have the people to garrison it even when she was queen. So it was just it was time for a change of location, some new digs.
Yeah, and she sponsored it. And
yeah,
paid
she
for
paid
them
it herself
to have a whole new castle built because this is the first castle on the wall. I think the Knight's Fort, And so when it's time for them to be like, oh, this is really not where we should be, it wasn't like there were all these other castles to choose from. So they had to like build a new one.
Exactly.
And did they tell us what it is? Oh, Deep Lake is what it's called, the castle that they moved to. And it's funny because it's mentioned that place, Deep Lake, is now also abandoned.
Right. Yeah, that's fucked up.
And it's funny because they don't go into any detail, but like we know in the present time, a lot of the castles of the Night's Watch are abandoned because they don't have the manpower. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if Deep Lake is empty because of that, or if it's also just been empty for like hundreds of years because of some other shit. But I thought about that for like a split second. I was like, oh, I wonder if some other shit went down there, or if it's just they couldn't keep it up anymore.
That's an interesting question.
So Bran is still trying to tell everybody that this place is fucking haunted, and I don't understand why y'all don't see it and feel it. It's very clear. It's very, very clear.
Yeah, there's something about that I really like. I we've got Jojen over here being like, I see the future, and everybody's like, all right, I guess you see the future. But then Bran has the nerve to be like, this place is haunted. And everybody's like, whoa. Like, where do you draw the line, man?
You know what's even funnier about that is not just that Jojen can see the future and they're all like, okay, you can do that. But their whole quest is centered
based
around
on it.
Bran being like the three-eyed raven or whatever the fuck. So why don't you believe him when he says they were a ghost?
This is what I'm saying. I just don't get it. Like, this is always the thing. Whenever you are reading a story where there is some magic that's acknowledged, and then there comes a point where the characters decide they're going to draw the line in the sand, and everything else has been possible, but this isn't. Really?
Now you're going too far.
Yeah, like, why now? All right, I guess.
So this is and this is when Bran thinks to himself too that like I don't think he says it out loud. I think he just thinks to himself, where he's just like, maybe Jojen just doesn't know the stories. Maybe no one's told him all the old stories.
Right.
Like trying to make sense of why they don't seem to get it. Like they don't seem to get what it is about this place in particular, right? Mm-hmm. And so Brandon's just like, well, hell, maybe they didn't have an old man.
I do enjoy that. They didn't have an old man. That should be the name of like a new search engine.
Old man?
Old man. That could be the wiki name for Song of Ice and Fire.
That Jeeves thing did not work out well, so I don't know.
Listen, Old Man and Jeeves are not even on the same,
okay.
No, ma'am.
Did the kids even know about Jeeves? Do y'all know? Yeah.
Which you mean about the website itself, or the
website I'm talking
character
about?
Of Jeeves from yeah. There are so many old websites that I think about. Remember Angel Fire?
Oh my god.
It's one of my favorites. I just love that name. It's just so weird. They were just like, let's put two cool words together. That's basically how George R. R. Martin operates. Let's be real.
It's true, right?
No offense, George. I mean, it works for you most of the time, but you do just like to do that. Winter fell. Ta-da!
So they spend Jojen and Bran and Hodor like spend the day while Mira is up on the wall trying to figure out what's going on, and this is when we get a little bit more about the Rat Cook and this other story, Mad Axe, which I don't know if we get that story or not, but that's a name that Bran keeps mentioning.
I can't remember if that comes up either because the Rat Cook is the one that really lodges itself in my brain.
It's hard to get like over. If you're going to have a takeaway, it's going to be the Rat Cook.
Yeah.
So she comes down, lets them know what the deal is with the wall, and that's not viable. And then we get the story about the Night's King. Mm-hmm. And again, I cannot tell how much of this is Bran actually sharing the stories or if he's just remembering them to himself.
I think it's that. I don't think he's sharing them.
Okay.
But I could be wrong about that, but I interpreted it as it being in him reflecting on all of this in his head.
And the reason I have a little bit of trouble with that is that as he's thinking to himself, but when he talks about things that Old Man says as it's written, there's a lot of quotations happening. Mm-hmm. And I tend to associate that with someone speaking.
Yeah.
But that's not what's happening. I guess he's just quoting Old Man in his mind. But he tells us the story of the Night's King. Y'all, this wild. This is what? What? So this Night's King and his corpse bride, he sees a woman that is so beautiful. He has to have her. And she's beautiful with skin as white as the moon and eyes like blue stars. Now, y'all know as soon as I read that, I was like, blue eyes. Because I know, maybe I'm supposed to just be like, oh, she had beautiful blue eyes. But see, I'm only partly new to this. So I know when you say somebody's got some white ass skin and some blue eyes, I know what the fuck that is.
Yep.
Immediately. He marries her. And then they have a child. It says when he gave his seed to her, he gave her his soul as well, which is really funny to me because that is a thing that exists in the imagination of men. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. A woman would never write that bullshit. But and then
however, in this case, that might be more true than not. This feels a different situation. I'm just saying.
And then brings her back to the Night Fort. makes her queen and himself king, which, no. And then just decides that they're going to rule, and then eventually, I love this too. The way they keep saying it is just the Stark of Winterfell. Like, we don't even need to know that motherfucker's name. It's just whoever is ruling in Winterfell at the time, right?
Right.
So the Stark of Winterfell and another person from the wildlings actually get together. It's this Juramun, and they have to go and save the Night's Watch because the Night's King and his bride have done like some kind of magic and shit and have the whole Night's Watch just basically obeying them.
Yep.
So they had to go and get rid of him, and then there's a whole addendum where Old Nan is just like, we don't really know. Like, people speculate who the Night's King was, you know. Some people think he might have been a Bolton or he might have been a Magnar, whatever. And then she says he was a Stark.
Yep.
And she says it with like some bass in her voice.
Yep.
Like, you know, like that. This is the tea. He was a Stark. He was the brother of the Stark of Winterfell who actually came and had to like handle him. So y'all, the Night's King is a Stark.
How about that?
Word. Because the thing is, this is Old Nan talking, right? So just because she says it's gospel doesn't mean it's gospel.
Yes,
but
does.
I'm inclined to believe her. I really am.
Look, personally, if Old Nan says it, I'm gonna just say that shit as gospel.
And then when she finishes the story, telling Bran the story, she had the nerve to like pinch his nose and be like, maybe he even slept in the very bed you're sleeping in. Ma'am, this is a child.
She's like, maybe he's still there. Maybe when you fall asleep. Christ, lady, will you fucking chill?
She says maybe his name was Brandon. Like, what? Who is leaving their children with you?
I love this so much because this is the shit that kids love, and
really
that
do,
adults are just like, that's too much for kids, and children are like, more. Tapping their veins.
Oh man. But so yes, I just love so much of this chapter, and these bits with Old Man are like some of my favorite parts of it. So Bran is shook. He cannot get any real rest.
Come back to your mic. You disappear
there. He cannot get any real rest because this is not a restful place that they have found themselves.
Sure, tisn't.
But he also feels a little bit like a dope, you know. He doesn't want to keep hammering about like how haunted this place is because clearly nobody else is feeling it.
Right.
And then we get I think we get the rat cook story. Or no, we just more references to the rat cook because he's hearing like rats everywhere. And he's like, they're in the kitchen, and at one point Bran is looking at like a butcher's block, and he's like, that was where the rat cook chopped the prince to pieces.
I love that. He's just so literal with it all. Like, and why wouldn't you be? Because he lives in a world where shit doesn't change.
Mm-hmm,
you know, nobody did a fucking like renovation of the kitchen probably since then. It's the same shit. It is wild to me. I've been watching Midsummer Murders, and if you watch shows set in the UK that are in little villages and you go inside people's houses, I have these very romantic notions about like living in an English village where I can walk to the pub and then I'll see the inside of this house with the fucking the front door is like 5 feet 6 inches high. Because it was built when people were max 4.5 feet fucking tall, and it's just that's the way we're still living, you know. Yeah, okay, sure, I get it. You guys have tons of history and ruins, and it's beautiful. I have central air. I win. End up. There are times where I'm just jealous of the history and the beauty, and then I fucking come back to Earth and I'm like, oh, but I get to have a dishwasher.
My cousin is going back to Portugal next year in the beginning. Well, like next month actually. And she was describing the house where she lives there, and she was telling me it's a very, very old house, and she said they still have the clotheslines that come out from the balcony that
shit.
stretch, and it has a little dolly thing where you pull it like
Yep.
to make the lines come back.
Yep.
And she was like, and everybody uses that. She's like, they have a dryer, but it's not a dryer like we have. Their dryers over there are just mostly
there's centrifugal force.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
like a salad spinner.
Yep. Just to like kind of wick out as much moisture as you can before it's time to hang the clothes up on the line.
Yep, I've used those, and I will say they are very effective if you live somewhere that it tends to be warm outside. It's plenty. Like, it works really well. But, oh boy, you do get spoiled with this, like, these appliances, man. Especially, like, just the sheer amount of space. When you talk about a refrigerator in the U.S., there's a very specific size that you're thinking of. Like, a particular thing. And, like, a fridge in the U.K., half that. Like the apartment I lived in, you had a mini fridge. It was a genuine mini fridge. So you were doing grocery shopping every day, every other day, because it just didn't hold anything. And that's there's just no room,
My, the most impressive thing about staying at my brother's for Christmas in the house is just a beautiful old house. But they have this refrigerator that I think regular, normal, middle-class people are like, yeah, that's what fridges are now. My broke ass, they have one of those fridges that has, like, the dairy, I don't even know what it's called.
The drawer?
No. It's like when you go to open the fridge, right? You grab the handle, you can push a button, and it opens, and it's like a shallow fridge first, where you can put, like, your milk and your juices and shit. And then you can close that door and grip the handle fully and then open it to the proper inside of the fridge.
What the fuck?
Listen, they showed me that shit. I was like, the future is here.
That is bonkers.
I could not get over. And then, like, you tap the glass and it'll light up so you can see what's in the fridge. This fucking fridge is, like, better than any place I've ever lived.
The glass? The fridge goes transparent?
Mm-hmm. And it's got like so it looks like a proper like fridge with like the two doors, and then you can tap on the glass and it'll light up and you can see what's inside the fridge. And I was helping him put groceries away, and I was like, where does this milk go? And I couldn't figure out where the milk went. There was no room. And then he was like, oh, you got to do this. You close the fridge and then you push the smaller button. And it's like your fridge door is sliced kind of in half. So there's like this little mini air shelf. It's like top to bottom, it's the height of the refrigerator, like your fridge space.
Right.
But it's shallow. So you can fit like, a quart of milk, like a thing of juice, some other little things there. And it's its own refrigerator. And then you close it and open up the door proper and get into the actual, like, fridge that has depth to it where all your shit goes. You could have knocked me over with a fucking feather, y'all. It was like...
I'm actively searching this feature, and I don't know what to call it.
I wish I had
I'm trying to find that is wild.
Yeah, okay, I'm glad you're impressed too, because I was just like, I don't get out enough, because this is sending me. This is just like the coolest thing I've ever seen.
You're like, I bet everybody just thinks this is a fridge. Okay, if they do, I'm not in the world. I mean, that's just, I thought having a little drawer for your fucking cheeses and shit was cool. Like, that's a whole other part. What?
When we get done, I'll ask him to text me the model so you can look it up.
Because your brother loves to cook, right? Like, he's gotten really into that.
But the fridge came with the house.
My God. How is that a standard thing?
Right? I was like, oh, y'all bought yourself a nice fridge. He was like, no, it was, it came with the house. Get the fuck out of here.
Oh, here we go. Good God.
Did you find it?
That's a $4,000 fridge.
Oh my God. No wonder I was so impressed.
Holy shit. LG French door-in-door smart refrigerator.
Door. Mm-hmm. It's a nice fucking refrigerator.
That shit is deep, though. Like, that's a chunky boy fridge.
Yep.
Oh my god! That is so... I am desperate for this now. Why did you have to let me know this exists? Oh,
I'm sorry.
What? The
And
inside of this is awesome.
It's so nice. Sorry, listeners.
This.
I know that you guys don't care about this refrigerator, but when I tell you, I was like, I could not get over it. And now I feel vindicated and validated because you are also really impressed. So it was a really cool fridge.
They've got, like, the crisper drawer has buttons for meat deli produce so that you know the moisture content of the crisper drawer. Are you kidding? Are you really? I guess we're doing that. That just feels excessive, but in a way that I would like. There's excessive where I'm just like, all right, we don't need to be doing all this. And then there's like the excessive where I'm like, oh, that is way too much. Yes. And this is that for me. They know their audience too, because the photos of the food in the fridge, they've got like frozen brie raspberry tarts and like creme brulee and packages of like shrimp hors d'oeuvres. This is the tropical mango dark chocolate like frozen ice cream bars.
Jesus Christ.
All of this is shit I have never seen in a store, but I want to shop there. I really want to live this life.
Oh my god.
Some real nice varieties of miso. Look at this. Ooh, I just want this fridge like with the contents. Can I buy it fully stocked? Look at this rosé. Ooh, they've got a whole cilantro garden in here. I want this so bad. Anyway, I love this too. They're like, would you like the protection from Geek Squad? That's only another $600. Oh god. Anyway, I'm sorry. So finally, they're all laying down to sleep. He's thinking about these stories. Old gods, if you hear me, don't send a dream tonight, or if you do, make it a good dream. He closes his eyes. And then he heard the noise. His eyes opened. What was that? He held his breath. Did I dream it? Was I having a stupid nightmare? Leaves. It's leaves rattling off the walls outside. Or it could be the wind. Sounds inside. It's in here with us. It's getting louder. Footsteps. Something was coming this way.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I was sufficiently creeped out by this moment. By now, I have got all of old Nan stories rattling around in my head, and I'm on edge, and everybody is trying to get some rest. He doesn't want to wake Jojen and Mira. Again, he's kind of embarrassed, doesn't want to look silly. I don't want to wake him up just for a bad dream. And it takes a minute of him just being alone and awake and hearing this noise.
Yeah. Before
he finally breaks down and decides that he'll wake Mira. And he fucking has to like scramble across the floor to get to her because he realizes it's coming from the fucking well.
Yep.
Something is coming up from that.
This
and they
12-foot across fucking nightmare
well. And this well that they had just had a conversation about like not even being sure it has a fucking bottom. Like, where does it go, you know? And somebody throws something. Is it Hodor? Somebody crinkles something over the side. So
Hodor chucks a fucking a piece of slate that he finds on the ground over the side.
And Bran is just like, don't fucking do that. You're going to wake whatever lives down there up.
Full of a toque. Yep. I don't blame you, man. Like, that is not... You just deep holes. I'm just a no on anything that goes underground or underwater real far beyond where I can see. Mm-hmm. And then you start futzing around and putting stuff where people are going to, like... Come on, man.
And when they say about the slate, when it goes down, there's not a splash sound. He describes it was more of a gulp, as if whatever was below had opened a quivering, gay-lidded mouth to swallow it, which is just not what you want to picture. I didn't ask for that imagery. So when something comes, shambling up out of the well, they have already got this. Bran, at least, has already got this worry around that. specific thing. So he wakes Mira up.
And I just really sympathize with him here.
This is an awful night. He's having a terrible, terrible night. And he goes to wake Mira up, and it mentions that, like, I'll say one thing about Mira. That bitch wakes up. She wake up.
Oh, I
she
love
wakes
it.
right
She
the
is
fuck up.
ready for anything. The moment he touches her, she's like, "What? Who needs killing?" That's what you want on your team.
You really do. You really, really do.
Here's the thing. Mad asks how he took his boots off and prowled the castle halls barefoot in the dark, with never a sound to tell you where he was, except for the drops of blood that fell from his axe and his elbows and the end of his wet red beard. Or maybe it wasn't Mad Axe at all. Maybe it was the thing that came in the night. The prentice boys all saw it, Old Man said, but afterward, when they told their Lord Commander, every description had been different. And 3 died within the year, and the 4th went mad, and 100 years later, when the thing had come again, the prentice boys were seen shambling along behind it, all in chains.
No, thank you.
That's so creepy. I love that.
It really is. And then he's like, but that's just the story. It's just the story. I am just scaring myself. What am I doing? Why am I like this?
I do this so bad. Do you do this? Like,
talk myself out of?
No, like, find yourself doing the intrusive thoughts but scary stuff thing. Like, I have intrusive thoughts where it's like, why don't you just break your laptop in half, or why don't you just cut your finger off while you're just like chopping. But when I'm falling asleep, I'll have intrusive thoughts like, what if there's something that hasn't got any skin over its face standing next to your bed? What about that?
Oh, good God. No, ma'am.
Yeah.
No, I don't do that.
So annoying, because my brain is real good at coming up with shit. And then, of course, I've got my, like, little eye mask on, and I have to lift it off and look to make sure.
Take a little peeky peek.
So tiresome.
I have really, really bad intrusive thoughts when I'm going to sleep, but they're just of a different variety. I had one the other night that shot me up out of the bed.
Ooh.
Like it was a nightmare, but it wasn't a nightmare. It was just an intrusive thought. And I had a physical reaction to the thing I thought as if it really happened. Like, I get it a lot with worrying about doing or saying the wrong thing. You know?
Yes.
So I will have an intrusive thought about something I may have posted or whatever, a comment I've left or something, and then I'll just become fixated on how that was not the right thing to do or say for whatever reason. And I'll get that that where your body heats up from like panic and and worry and everything. Yeah. I'll get that, and I will shoot straight up out of a dead sleep.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, God,
it's the fucking worst. But mine tend to not be like creepy stuff, just like weird brain being dumb.
Yeah, the creepy stuff. Why? I hate that so much.
I'm so glad I don't have it. I'm so glad, because I would never fucking sleep. And I love to sleep, you guys know it's my favorite thing.
Yeah, that's the thing about like depression. It's like, well, I would like for you to sleep all the time, but I'm going to make that really fucking difficult. Yeah. Like, come on, man. We can't just like work together on this. I thought we at least had one goal in common, but no. Fine.
We could be on the same team.
For a little bit at least.
So now Bran realizes that this shit is real. The sound is real. He's not imagining it. It's definitely coming from the fucking well. Gets Mira up. She's ready to go, like you said. And then he decides that, because Jojen sleeps through most of this, by the way.
Yes.
But Bran decides he can't let Mira fight whatever this thing is alone, and he decides he's going to just sort of, I guess, walk into Hodor. And
I hate this.
Yeah, he does it, and I don't. This is weird, right? Like, ethically.
I 100% agree.
Okay, it's not just me. Okay.
Hodor is over here so frightened that he vomits. And Bran is just like, oh well. Bran, why do you need to be walking right now? What is that going to do? Like,
well, he like thinks he's going to fight. Like, he's going to like grab something and like help Mira fight whatever this monster is. Yeah, he grabs the longsword. But that doesn't make it okay.
I don't think it. very much taking over somebody's body. Like, you know, there's just an implication that he's barely using it. You know, like there's not like enough of Hodor's mind to count, and I'm like, that's real gross.
Yeah, like this, it's like a waste of all this brute strength. You know, and they're in this particular situation where they're in danger, and you have this man that's this powerful, and he's like not helping us in any way. You know, and then I think he gets so scared that that's what throws him out of Hodor.
I'm trying to find the spot where this happens. The black shape that comes out, Bran saw her spear dart out. The wailing was still coming from the well. Mira stood over him. I'm black. I'm Sam, the black thing sobbed. I'm Sam, let me out. You stabbed me. Hodor was still shouting, Hodor, Hodor, Hodor. And I don't see the spot where he gets busted out of there.
Yeah, it just says, it's right where you, unless I'm reading it wrong, it says, a huge black shape, blah, 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 lurched in the moonlight. The fear rose up in Bran so thick that before he could even think of drawing Hodor's sword the way he'd meant to, he found himself back on the floor again with Hodor roaring.
Oh, okay,
so does it just mean that that him in Hodor went to the floor? I read it as like Bran is back in his own body on the floor, and Hodor is on the floor screaming.
Yes, I think that you're right.
Right. So intense fear is what pushed him out, I'm assuming, right?
Okay, yeah.
So we have the pain of summer. So I guess any really strong primal emotion is going to be so completely overtake your brain, right? Mm-hmm. That's it. That's a wrap. You know, is what it feels like. Interesting. So then, yeah, it's Sam. It's our boy Sam. I was so tickled to see him.
I know. And Gilly here with a baby. And fucking, I was so mad. Bran is just like, oh, he's no threat. He's just some fat guy dressed up in black wool. And I'm just like, God. He's a black brother, said Bran.
I'm sorry. I'm just reading the bit where he's just like, you stabbed me.
Mira just has no patience with. He's wriggling around, and Mira's like, if you fuck my net up, I need this. Stop it. Just hold still for a second.
I love too. Bran is like to Sam, "Are you the three-eyed crow?" And then thinks to himself, he can't be the three-eyed crow.
So yeah, they kind of get things straightened out here as far as like who he is. And Gilly says something like, "Are you him?" There was someone else, he said, the one he was sent to find. Who said? Cold Hands. And I'm like, that's not helpful, Gilly. That's not giving us anything. Yeah. And I got us lost. I couldn't even find the wall. It's 100 leagues long and 700 feet high, and I couldn't find it. Poor Sam. And apparently there is a gate, and I love Jojen. He doesn't say "I told you so," but it's all over the place in his mind. I'm sure
somebody needed to say it, or maybe the opposite. Maybe nobody needed to say it because it was so clear.
And when they're like, well, we'll just go out that way, Sam's like, you aren't going to be able to. It's the Black Gate. Only a man of the Night's Watch can open it. And when they're like, okay, so why didn't Cold Hands come through with you? He's like, well, he can't. There's a security system, and the facial recognition software doesn't like him and doesn't let him through.
I want to just mention really quickly that as Gilly is, that when they're talking about Cold Hands, Jojen is just like, this Cold Hands said that, and then Gilly's just like, well, that wasn't his real name, but that's what we called him. And she says, we only called him that. His hands were cold, but he saved us from the dead men, him and his ravens. And Bran is like, his elk, Mira, his elk, Jojen, his ravens, Hodor.
Everybody's being very preoccupied with different things. Was he green? Did he have antlers? The fat man was confused. The elk? Cold hands, said Bran impatiently. There's something about this conversation that's very funny.
It is, right? It's got like a real fucking like Laurel and Hardy kind of Abbott and Costello energy happening. A very, very like who's on first kind of thing. And just because they're all like looking for different things and trying to determine if this thing of Sam's is like what they are looking for, Bran and Jojen and them, you know, trying to, you know, figure out. So he tells them about the gate, and they agree that they are going to follow Sam down, but leave Gilly behind.
Yeah.
By herself, which I don't 100% understand, but, you know. And they go down these stairs. Oh, and then there's like, finally we get to, Sam realizes who Bran is. I was dying. Like, are we not going to talk about Jon Snow?
I know.
We're not going to talk about Jon Snow.
Finally.
And then it happened, and I was so much happier than I really should have been for this moment. But I was so fucking satisfied. I was like, finally.
Yeah, there's just something about anybody finding out that Bran is actually alive. And, like, granted, Jojen's immediately like, no, he's not.
Yeah.
Who do you think Nope, he's not that guy.
Not
that guy's dead. He died. So just make sure you remember how dead he definitely is.
Definitely dead. Definitely not this guy in front of you. But yeah, there's something about, like, especially I think too, we've had so many near misses. You know, we had Bran with Jon, you know, right there. Of course, we had Arya at the twins at the wedding, you know. So even though Sam is not a Stark, you know, he's kind of a surrogate in a way, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to have our people who have been scattered all across Westeros, having in all these different like little like, I don't call them side quests because that seems dismissive, but everybody's offering their own adventure. It's just really gratifying to have a moment where like our people their paths cross, you know.
Yes.
And it would have been awesome if it had been Jon that, you know, finds him, but we're not getting that. So it was just really satisfying that Sam realizes who he's talking to.
Yeah, agreed.
And then there's a moment when fucking Bran is talking about Jon, because Sam is just like, you know, I haven't seen Jon since he left for the First Man, and he never came back. And Bran is like, oh, well, Jon's here, you know, we saw him. And then Sam turns, he says, yeah, Summer saw him. And then Sam looks at Mira like, oh, you're certain you saw him?
I love that. I love that moment. It didn't occur to me that, like, oh, nobody's actually, like, really given their names yet. So, yeah, of course you would be like, oh, Summer, that's you, of course.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Because it's definitely not going to pop into his head that Bran is talking about his fucking direwolf.
Right.
You know, like, that's not going to be the first thing you think so. But then once he says it, Sam is like, oh, right. Yeah, Jon told me you guys all had the wolves, you know? And that I know ghosts, so... I don't know. I just this little mini reunion was really, really good.
And Sam holds his hand out, and Summer licks his hand. And for Bran, he's like, "That's it. I trust this guy."
Yep.
Immediately, just like 100%.
And then after Bran like is like, "Yeah, we're gonna go," Sam is like, "All of you?" And they had to just be like, "Well, yeah, he's our prince. You know, where he goes, we go." So yeah, they go down the well. It is unpleasant. It does not sound great. And they get down, and the gate turns out to be like a white weirwood tree with one of the old faces on it.
Yeah.
It's not black gate at all.
Pretty weird, right?
Yeah, and it's like again, introducing magic in a time and place where I wasn't expecting it to be, you know.
Yeah.
As far as being able to get through the wall, you know, we've like they even say like a page or two ago why the reason that cold hands can't cross over is because there's like spells woven in or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But then that moment of explaining why cold hands can't cross over the wall feels kind of like, well, you say that. You know, but let me see what happens when you try. And we don't ever actually see that. And then to go immediately to this black gate and have it be this thing, this tree that it's like one of those portraits at fucking Hogwarts.
Oh my God. Yeah, and the it talks and it does like fat lady guard the entrance, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
My question is how conscious it is. Because the fat lady has a whole conversation with you.
Oh yeah,
like,
she's got friends. She goes visiting people and shit.
She does brunch.
Yeah.
And this guy, Sam recites some of the Night's Watch vow.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, all right, then you can go through. And I want to know, can he tell that Sam took the vow and like takes it seriously? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, I get the feeling that this is all of it, all that it can do is wake up and ask for like the password, you know, and then it has to, but your question about how does it ascertain if it's a true person that took the oath or just someone who knows the words,
right?
You know? I mean, since we're leaning into the magic, I feel like there's got to be something built into it that can tell the difference in some way that probably wasn't worth George Martin trying to explain, you know?
I like to think so too. It doesn't make a lot of sense to have something be magic, but only just be like,
right,
I'm going to ask a question and take your answer at face value. So yeah, I prefer to think of it that way.
And then there's the fucking as they pass through, the door is actually fairly low, and fucking Bran like knocks his head.
Oh my God. There's something about those little moments where I'm just like, you didn't have to add that, George, but I appreciate you. Just a little bit of it's embarrassing. Just a little bit of embarrassment for a treat.
And yeah, when you talk about like the magic of this gate, it lets Sam through because he knows the words, but nobody else is a brother, and it doesn't keep them from crossing through.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, so it makes me think that it's got to be sentient enough to understand, you know, one, that Sam is really a Night's Watch brother and that these people are with Sam. And so his rite of passage extends to them. You know, if it was more like just automated, wouldn't it check each person, you know? Because how would it know?
Automated. I'm just picturing like this little guy comes out with a wand and he just like security at TSA. Ladies and gentlemen, I implore you.
That's one of my favorite lines to say.
It's a little Seinfeld reference for everybody who's kind of like, what the fuck is that? So yeah, they go through this, and it's just a beginning of a whole new part of this journey.
Oh, new to me.
There's also the door's upper lip brushed softly against the top of Bran's head, and a drop of water fell on him and ran slowly down his nose. It was strangely warm and salty as a tear.
Why is this warm? Everything has been chilly in this whole chapter. We are cold. It's freezing. We're like at the wall. Why is it warm?
That's a good question.
I don't like it.
It's alive! Yeah, something's going on. So what do you think's gonna happen?
Girl, I don't know. I would love, and I can't imagine this is a real fucking thing, but since this is a magic gate, I loved the idea that you go like 15 minutes and then you're at the fucking Castle Black. Like it's like a magic portal or some shit.
Oh, it's a Castle Black. Okay.
You know, or somewhere. I say Castle Black because that's where I want them to eventually end up. But maybe it's like a tunnel that just links to the next castle. So maybe it's not Castle Black, but it's like whatever that Deep Lake was, which is the next closest one. Mm-hmm. And they just have like a little underground magic portal to go from castle to castle. But it's so old that people have forgotten about it, you know, because it's thousands of years old. Nobody remembers it anymore. But I don't think the book is actually going to give me that.
Got a little Doctor Who going on in here, it sounds like. We just want a teleportation device.
I do, because I just want them to hurry up and get back to Castle Black.
I feel that, yeah.
But there's probably a lot more adventure that needs to happen before they make their way back. And even I can't remember much of the show, but even if I did, their timeline can't be trusted, you know.
Oh God, yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I really don't have an idea of when exactly these guys are going to make it back. I don't know if it's going to be like by the end of this book, or will they still be traveling into the next book? Like, I don't know. And we are more than halfway done.
Yeah.
We got like
according to my Kindle, 66% of the way through.
Okay. Yeah. So just about a third left.
Woo.
Yeah. So, but
right.
yeah, again, really enjoyed these 2 chapters.
It's so nice I mean, look, I don't want to be like a bummer because I feel like we've done our jobs well, but it was rough for a bit there with, a lot of recovering stuff that Rashawn knew what was coming and it wasn't a surprise. And it's a really difficult thing to get psyched up to talk about something when we kind of feel like we've talked about this exact plot point already in a different context. And I am just so excited that we're moving into, I mean, there's a lot of talk about how like the Red Wedding is one of the higher points of the series. In terms of just like the shock value and everything, personally disagree. It's like a very memorable thing, but there is some other stuff coming up that it has lodged itself much more firmly in my mind.
Oh, really?
And I am just very excited to see how you react to some, even just within this book. Like, I'm not talking about that far into the future even. So we've turned a corner here, and it really happens kind of immediately. So I'm excited.
Well, yeah, these 2, like, really, you did just like both chapters were so different than what I knew already. And we aren't really that far past the Red Wedding. So you're right. It didn't take very long.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, this makes me excited as well. Like, these were a lot of fun. So it's got me kind of being like, all right, book, what else you got?
Right. And I should also, I want to say hi to new patrons this week. We've got Yodi Olek, Mirank, Amy Young, and Pritam Ozarde. I smashed the button against my butt for that one. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for becoming patrons. Really, really appreciate you. And Rashawn and I are recording this Saturday, December 31st. By the time this goes up, we'll be into 2023, ladies and gentlemen.
We sure will. This is it, kids. This is the last recording of 2022, and it has been some year.
A heck of a year. But yeah, I really appreciate your support, and it just means a lot. It's been a tough year for a lot of people financially. And I have had some very kind, sweet, longtime supporters who have gotten in touch and been like, I am so sorry, I have to drop my pledge. And I'm like, oh, I get it. Groceries are no joke right now. And every time I get a new patron, y'all are helping me with those groceries. I really do appreciate you. It's adding up and it's necessary.
Yeah.
And I just want everybody to know that I just appreciate each name that pops up. So if you're interested in becoming a patron, go to patreon.com/unspoiled. And you can choose whatever tier suits you. There's all kinds of rewards for each one. And Rashawn and I are going to be doing our unsobers for January. One of them is going to be about planning our own funeral. I've decided that's a fun topic to cover. And the other one, I'm not sure, but I feel like probably will be on The Circle Season 5.
Woohoo!
I'm pretty excited about that.
Week. It dropped the other day.
Did you watch any yet? I haven't watched it yet.
Not yet. I'm probably gonna watch New Year's Day. Well, not New Year. Yeah, tomorrow I'll probably lounge and just watch as many episodes as they have available.
That's a good idea. It's a good way to spend New Year's. So yeah, if you're interested in listening to those are unsobers, and those are for $20 and up patrons. They're live on Saturday nights, Central Standard Time, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. But they also go up as sound recordings as well to listen to like a regular podcast. And $20 and up also gets the postcard, also gets the access to Soki Statcast series and like the back catalog of all the other stuff we have covered. So there's a lot of value on a variety of tiers. I'm proud to say, offer more than I have ever seen any other podcast offer for their money. So I
Bang for your buck, baby.
just dust my shoulders off a little bit. All right, everybody. We love you very much.
We do.
We will see you next week with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Jon, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.